Hi there. Welcome to Still Eating Popcorn Movie Recaps. Today, we're looking at the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The movie starts with a group of apes sitting together before being ambushed by hunters. The apes disperse, and the hunters chase the fleeing apes. A female ape is caught in a net and brought back to San Francisco. In San Francisco, pharmaceutical chemist Will Rodman tests the viral-based drug ALZ-112 on chimpanzees at the biotechnology company Genesis to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. ALZ-112 is given to a chimpanzee named Bright Eyes, the chimp we see captured earlier, greatly increasing her intelligence. She now has green eyes because of the ALZ-112. We see her solve a complex puzzle in record time, leaving Will impressed. Will runs to his boss, Stephen Jacobs' office, and tells him that ALZ-112 works. He requests permission to go to human trials. Stephen says Will needs present his findings to the board for their approval and allows him to proceed. He advises that Will keeps his personal emotions out of his work. Will presents his findings to the board, and they are joined in his optimism as a cure for Alzheimer's. However, during Will's presentation for the drug, a scientist attempts to get Bright Eyes out of her cage. Bright Eyes grabs him by his tie before letting go after another scientist, Franklin, demands. Franklin tries to trick Bright Eyes with her favorite soda, but this is a trick, and she is forced from her cage. She goes on a rampage and launches herself through the window of the room where Will is presenting and is shot to death after Will demands she is not to be harmed. Will's superior, Stephen Jacobs, terminates the project and orders Will to start again. However, Will's assistant, Robert Franklin, reveals that the reason for Bright Eyes' rampage was that she had recently given birth. Franklin tells Will to take the baby ape for a few days, as he cannot take him. Will refuses. Franklin reveals that Stephen has authorized all the apes to be euthanized and presents Will with a euthanizing drug. Will reluctantly takes in the infant chimpanzee and returns home. We meet Will's father, Charles, who is suffering from Alzheimer's, and immediately, Charles takes a liking to the baby chimp. Discovering that Caesar, the name Will has given to the baby ape, has inherited his mother's intelligence through being exposed to ALZ-112, Will decides to raise him. 3 years pass, Caesar becomes highly intelligent. He can communicate through sign language and play chess. Caesar also becomes well-suited to a human lifestyle, becoming comfortable living in a house, and has his own room. Charles's condition worsens, and the nurse taking care of him quits, stating that he needs to be taken care of in a home due to his poor condition. Meanwhile, Will steals ALZ-112 from the lab and treats his father, Charles. Will falls asleep at his father's bedside but wakes up to find him missing. He hears a piano playing downstairs and finds Charles is the source of the piano. The ALZ-112 has worked, and Charles appears to be healed. Will is overjoyed. Caesar sees kids playing outside and attempts to join them. However, he is injured by their neighbor, but saved by Will and Charles. Will takes Caesar to primatologist Caroline Arana, who tends to Caesar's injury and is impressed by Caesar's signing ability. Will begins a romantic relationship with primatologist Caroline Arana. Will and Caroline introduce Caesar to the redwood forest at Muir Woods National Monument so he can roam. 5 years later, Caesar, now entering adulthood, notices a dog on a leash and questions his origins and place in the world. Caesar refuses to sit in the trunk of the car and takes a passenger seat. He asks if he is a pet, and Will tells Caesar that he is not. Will then takes Caesar to Genesis and explains his origins. Caesar asks if his mother is dead, and Will confirms. Will then explains that Caesar's mother passed ALZ-112 genes onto Caesar, which is why he is smart. We learn that Charles' condition is returning as Caesar helps him hold a fork correctly. Charles' condition returns as his immune system becomes resistant to ALZ-112. Charles gets into their neighbor's car in his worsened condition and crashes it. This angers the neighbor, who becomes aggressive to Charles and lays hands on him. Caesar injures the aggressive neighbor, Douglas Hunsaker, by biting off his finger while defending Charles. The local animal control service subsequently takes him to an ape shelter. The authority advises Will that Caesar will be integrated safely with the rest of the apes. We see Caesar is scared and wants to go home, but Will says they can't go home together. After Will leaves, Caesar is lured into a cage by the chief guard, Dodge Landon. Will finds out that it will take 90 days before he can appeal to get Caesar back. Caesar is tormented by the alpha chimpanzee, Rocket, and Dodge Landon. However, Caesar befriends Maurice, a former circus orangutan who also knows sign language. Caesar learns to unlock his cage, gaining free access to the common area. Caesar frees Buck, a caged gorilla. With the assistance of Buck, Caesar claims the position of Alpha by intimidating Rocket in front of the other apes. Meanwhile, Jacobs clears the development of a more powerful gaseous version of the drug, ALZ-113, when Will tells him it can improve intelligence. Will takes the drug home for his father, but Charles declines further treatment and dies overnight. After attempting to test the drug on a bonobo named Koba, Koba jolts and knocks Franklin's mask off, accidentally exposing him to ALZ-113. Despite the risks, Jacobs orders continued trials, and Will consequently quits his position. Franklin becomes ill and sneezes blood onto Hunsiker, attempting to warn Will at his home, and is later discovered dead. Will bribes the facility to release Caesar back to him. Will attempts to reclaim Caesar, but Caesar instead decides to stay. Caesar orders Rocket to give the other apes cookies as he plans to get the apes on the same page. Rocket cooperates. Maurice and Caesar talk in sign language, and using sticks shows that apes together are strong before some apes start fighting, and Maurice signs that they are not smart. Caesar realizes that Maurice is correct. He then escapes and returns home and sees Will sleeping and reminisces of their good times together. Caesar then finds the ALZ-113 canisters and steals them from Will's house. He makes his way back to the facility and tears into the ALZ-113 canisters and enhances the intelligence of the other apes in the shelter. We then see Caesar teaching the now well-organized, intelligent ape sign language, which surprised the facility manager. When Dodge attacks Caesar while attempts to get him back into his cage, Caesar reveals he can speak before knocking out Dodge. The other apes are in shock. Later, he fights with Dodge while freeing the apes. Dodge attempts to electrocute Caesar. However, Caesar shoots water at Dodge, inadvertently killing him. Caesar finds out that the facility they are being held is providing apes to Genesis for trials. The apes flee, releasing Koba and the remaining apes from Genesis and freeing additional apes from the San Francisco Zoo. A battle ensues as the apes fight their way past a police blockade on the Golden Gate Bridge in an attempt to escape into the redwood forest. To rescue Caesar, Buck sacrifices himself to down a helicopter. Koba approaches the crashed helicopter and sees Jacobs begging and looks at him menacingly. Koba pushes the helicopter, with Jacobs still inside, into San Francisco Bay. As the apes find their way into the forest, Will finds and warns Caesar that the humans will hunt them, begging him to return home. Caesar hugs him and says he is home. Will accepts Caesar's wishes, and the apes embrace their new lifestyle in the forest. Meanwhile, Hunsiker, now infected with ALZ-113, arrives at San Francisco International Airport for his flight. He eventually spreads the virus around the planet, leading to a deadly pandemic. We hope you enjoyed this movie recap. We post movie recaps every week. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.